Well, there's a big potential change coming along, and that's this thing called a National Climate Service. Um, it's been discussed now among multiple agencies, and NOAA is looking at trying to reorganize itself to establish a NOAA climate service just within NOAA. But there will be climate services that a lot of agencies, including Department of Interior, USDA, Department of Energy, a lot of federal agencies will be participating in as part of a broader national climate service. And that's sort of the big question mark right now, and that could fundamentally change how we do what we do. I don't think what we do in terms of interacting with clients, providing them climate expertise, providing them climate information, I don't see that changing. In fact, if anything, it's just going to continue to grow. The National Climate Service will in many ways regulate the rate of that growth. If there's a substantial federal investment, then we could see an explosive growth, and it could be a whole new career path for our students. And a lot of undergraduate and graduate programs, not just here at NCSU, are looking at how they train students to become more aware of the climate issues and the applications of climate issues to other disciplines, because that's where future government sector as well as private sector growth is likely to be, and has the potential to outstrip even the growth in traditional forecasting. I mean, they've been talking about a national climate service since the early 1980s.
Yeah.
And it's gone through a variety of levels of interest and activity. There actually used to be a much larger federal investment in the state climate programs. Right now there's very little, if any. But a national climate service could really change that. And with the state climatologist programs like mine and the scientists that we have that are actively out and engaging with all the users out there, it's a real opportunity for us. But it's, of course, tough times for everyone, and there are legitimate questions about how we expend our valuable resources. So over the next decade, that's going to be the sort of the big question mark as to how things may fundamentally change in the applied climate sciences. One of the other interesting challenges that comes with this is even moving outside of the worlds of what we think of as the pure and applied sciences. There's a lot of social science involvement too. This is something that initially I didn't really think about. In fact, something I purposefully avoided. I didn't want to be a social scientist. But how people use information, how people build trust with experts, how people think about science and scientific guidance. There are a lot of other issues that come into play with that don't have really anything to do with the quality of the science. There's a lot of other aspects, cultural, social aspects that come into that. So one of the things that we've gotten more involved with here in recent years is trying to understand how you develop tools, how you convey scientific information in a way that is more than just intuitive to your audience, but that is almost trust building. Especially climate scientists have been in the middle of a lot of controversy in the past 5 years. So a lot of people who might otherwise benefit from using climate science are sort of up in the air as to, well, who do I, what's real and who do I trust? And so as sort of the state local trusted resources, we're trying to make sure that we build on that trust and engage new groups that maybe we haven't reached out to in the past, and figure out how do we produce a tool, how do we convey something like even as simple as a trend. How do you convey that to an audience that maybe has a preconceived notion of what you're going to say before you even walk in the door? So these are things that initially didn't think we'd have to worry about, right? And when I got involved in this, climate change was sort of a side thought. It wasn't something that people were actively discussing, actively arguing about. So now we have this other giant issue that could be a real global challenge. How do we convey that and deal with these issues of global warming and yet also local climate change, local adaptation issues? How do we make ourselves more resilient to the climate that we've had in the past, as well as what may be a future climate? And then you start getting into issues of policy and what are the best choices. And that's where typically we've had to step back and say, well, it's not just a scientific issue. It's a political issue. I mean, these are issues that involve decisions about resources and values and fairness and justice. things that science alone cannot answer, but science certainly should guide.